Good afternoon. Welcome to the West Side Story. I'm your host, John Casey. If this is your first visit, please click the like and subscribe buttons. And if you're a returning visitor, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Wanted to start by making an announcement, if you will. Generally speaking, I try to do these reports in a dress shirt, and that I think better represents what we are doing here. However, today I am wearing a t-shirt which says YouTube. This was a gift from my next door neighbor who actually happens to work for Google, and it very much appreciated. Thank you, Cerny. And in saying thank yous, I also want to mention Alan Jensen, who has given numerous comments on things that could and couldn't be done and different ways to handle problems. AJ has always been there, and even when he doesn't think what I'm doing is the right thing, he still comes up with constructive things to say. Jumping into the police report, the Santa Clara Police Department was called to the Kaiser Hospital at 700 Lawrence, our Santa Clara hospital, at 6:45 this morning for a problem in the emergency room. They had the problem resolved by 7:15, but they aren't talking about what it was. That's kind of interesting. The library and the Census Bureau, those guys just keep cranking out excellent content. You ought to check them both out. Their websites are readily available. Dogs. This week we're going to talk about a fellow named Hennessy. He's a 17-month-old German Shepherd mix, and he's been spayed. He's had that activity, and he's a bit chipped. One of the interesting things about him, beautiful dog, big dog. You're going to need to have a place for him to exercise if you do choose to adopt him. But there's no fee. His fee has been sponsored, so you can adopt the dog for free as opposed to having to pay the $250 fee. It was a gift. And it's a beautiful dog, but like I say, it's a big dog. You're going to have a place to allow it to run and grow. A lot of comments on my discussions of the Supreme Court decisions, and specifically, what the heck was Plessy versus Ferguson? May 18th, 1896, so we're going back quite a while, there was a case brought to the U.S. Supreme Court questioning the Louisiana Separate Car Act. Now, by this point, the U.S. government had already determined that you could not segregate people on interstate travel. However, the state of Louisiana had their own rule that said blacks and whites couldn't ride in the same cars. The gentleman named Homer Plessy thought that was a very bad idea, and he got together with a bunch of his buddies. Homer was 7/8 white and 1/8 Creole. He bought a ticket to ride on the train, went and sat in the white car. They came and told him to move. He refused to move. He got arrested, and there you go. It got all the way to the U.S. District Court, where John H. Ferguson, who was the judge assigned the case, said, no, there's no violation of the 14th or 15th or 16th Amendments here. That's okay. Don't worry about it. Very interestingly, at the time were 9 justices on the Supreme Court as there are now. 1 abstained, and then this fellow, John Marshall Harlan, wrote an incredibly strongly worded, even for back then, defense of the case, saying that the other 7 were wrong and they shouldn't have done that. And to this day, people use that dissent to describe why we should be a little more careful about extending rights as opposed to pulling them back. And I'm sure somebody is saying at this point, okay, John, but what happened to that law? It doesn't exist anymore. Well, what happened in 1954, there was a little girl named Brown, last name was Brown, I can't remember the first name. In any case, she wanted to go to a white school in the city of Topeka, and her parents went and registered her, and they were told they couldn't do that, and they tried to bring her to school anyway, and there was an arrest. Very ugly. Well, it made its way to the Supreme Court, and this is 1954, mind you, and the Supreme Court gave it a lot of thought and then said that separate is inherently unequal. It doesn't matter that you may have tried to make them equal, they are not. And the little girl could go to the school. Interestingly enough, President Dwight Eisenhower had to call out the troops to get her into school, and they actually sent FBI agents into the class with her to make sure she wasn't hassled. In 1954. People don't talk about that anymore. Subsequent to that, we've had both the Warren Court and the Rehnquist courts who have expanded civil rights quite dramatically. Almost like they were feeling if you could extend a right, you should. Really, really interesting stuff. If you have another decision you'd like to talk about or questions, please by all means let me know in the comments, and we'll get back to you on those. Jumping down to tonight's City Council meeting, there's a couple of interesting items that caught my eye. The first one is we, as a city, have brought in a city attorney from a firm in Fresno who acts on an hourly basis and collects a decent fee. The original proposal was that the attorney would cost us $300,000. Well, there's been a request now to increase that $300,000 to $900,000. And as I've said many times, that's not chump change, especially in a city that's $22 million in debt already. So there's going to be, I'm sure, a lively discussion about that and about the idea that why don't we just hire our own city attorney and pay him a whole bunch less. There's also going to be a discussion about the recall of the most recently appointed planning commissioner. He was appointed by Councilmember Anthony Becker and was unanimously approved. Got the job, and then somebody decided he didn't actually live in the city. And there's a whole question about legal residence and actual residence. There's also a question about living somewhere and getting your mail somewhere else or registering to vote somewhere else. It's a very, very complicated issue, and they're going to bring that up tonight. As a matter of fact, it's after 4:30, so they're already in closed session talking about some issues, and they're going to get to these two later on tonight. I suspect it will also be a very long meeting, as has become the norm these days. So that's it for now. I thank you for tuning in. Sorry about messing the camera. I thank you for tuning in. Again, please like and subscribe, and stay safe.